great punk. We put him in the fucking box with the frog tonight. Then see if you can stay away from the frog. One touch of the fucking frog. How about that, Willie boy? Big old ganglang Willie boy. How about going in the box tonight with the frog?
Oh my. That's real?
It's real.
It's not like from a movie?
No, that is 110% Jim Jones. So, like, what cracks me up is that, and it shouldn't crack me up because, of course, he's abusing this kid. He's pretty much, but the kid is very crystal clear sounding, as you could hear. It was like, well, dad. Like, he's just like kind of monotone, so it's just hysterical. But if you guys haven't guessed already, we're going to talk about Jim Jones and the People's Temple, part 4.
Part 4.
So last time on the People's Temple, we talked about the escalating abuse, his political career, how they found Guyana. And so today we're going to actually talk about how they left California for Guyana, what life was like in Jonestown, and the beginning of the White Knights. Before we dive too far in, we're going to talk about my sources. The Road to Jonestown by Jeff Gunn. Last podcast on the left had a series of it from episode 300 to 304. Wikipedia, Rolling Stone, PBS, and the Alternative Considerations of Jonestown and the People's Temple by San Diego U, which is the People's Temple Archive. I think that's it. So.
And before we get too much further, this is Becky.
And this is Jen. And this is too close to home. Sorry. I'm just so excited.
But by episode 4, if you're still listening, you should know who we are. So it's okay. It's okay. They know.
Unless you start in the middle of a series like a savage. Like, I just like, it's a whole new mystery. Who are we talking about?
I know all the information up to part 4. I'll start here.
And now. On August 1st, 1977, an edition of New West magazine included an article critical of People's Temple and its leader, Jim Jones. Written by Marshall Kilduff and Phil Tracy, the piece was based principally upon interviews with disaffected ex-members. In the previous series written earlier, where they only were able to release 4 before it was shut down, it was received with people wanting to join the People's Temple, whereas this one would expose every dark little secret that Jim had been trying to hide from the outside world and his congregants. The defectors reported physical, mental, and sexual abuse, brutal punishments, fake healings, and misappropriation of funds. The article included photos of the defectors giving a face to the ugly side of the People's Temple. Whereas before they just talked about what was happening, this actually was like, oh no, these people are real. Like, this is really happening. Most important thing to Jim Jones was how people viewed him. His own son said, if all people around you think you're the cat's meow, you will too.
Mm-hmm.
This meant that the clock was ticking to move his people out of America and to Jonestown in expeditious fashion before the article was published. And within weeks, the colony, meant to only house 200 people, went from 60 people to 600 in number. As it was published, Jim was leaving town on a jet plane, never to see America again. He left behind a small amount of people to run the stateside portion of the People's Temple, and the event, Guyana, did not pan out. From here, it takes a year and a couple months for the complete disintegration of Jim Jones and the People's Temple. So let's talk about that last year. Jim had several key people in place from day one of the mass exodus to the last cup of poison. Carol Layton and Maria Katsaris ran Jonestown day to day for Jim Jones. And later on in the death tape, we're going to hear Maria actually talk. She was, by all accounts, both of them are raging bitches, but not like in the cool way like we are. Just like homicidal type, you know. Both of them were his side pieces, but completely allegiant to Jim and his every demand. They also were known to be ruthless. Maria would actually take flying lessons stateside in case the People's Temple wanted to pull a kamikaze to make a point. So equality by murder-suicide? I mean, I didn't know that's the way to do it, but...
Well, you learn something new every day, Jennifer.
I mean, in death, we're all equal, no matter what, but let's not be like that. I mean, we have to be that goth about it. With their relationships with Jim, both women blossomed with this weird fucking confidence. Their family and friends said that prior to the People's Temple, they were like real meek and sweet girls. And then, the longer they were with Jim, the more dicks they became, pretty much. Once Jim arrived at Jonestown, he took immediate ownership and oversaw every minute detail. The 5 months prior to his arrival was described as serene, and the crew felt one with nature until he arrived. You couldn't buy a tool, dig a hole, take a shit, anything without Jim being involved. Outgoing mail was closely monitored. If you sent out something that appeared to portray the People's Temple in a negative light, you would receive it back with margin notes to correct before sending.
Oh, well, okay then.
See, that's why you have to come up with code words, okay?
Exactly.
So if I say I need to get a tan, obviously I can't tan. 1. 2.
So be concerned.
2. Find out where I'm at. Save me.
And did we not learn anything from the Zodiac Killer about ciphers?
Ciphers. Listen, you got to outsmart the criminals.
Exactly.
Think ahead.
Yes.
Or you're dead. That's our new slogan.
Pretty catchy.
Think ahead or you're dead. Dr. Larry Schacht was also extremely important to Jonestown. He was a Vietnam veteran who became a heroin addict. And he met Jim Jones and the People's Temple, and he went through their rehab program. Jim saw potential in Larry. Being a heroin addict, uses needles. What better way than to reward him by sending him to medical school and to get it done in expeditious fashion? It was done in Mexico. And it rendered him an unquestionable supporter and devotee of Jim's. Because I guess you being put through doctor school. All right, whatever you need me to do, Daddy.
Doctor school, Jennifer.
Doctor school, Mr. Doctor. I'm really up to. I'm pretty medical professional.
The level of intelligence that just flowed from that sentence was
right. Astounding.
Too high above my level. I'm going to need you to bring it down.
Let me come down from my Harvard level, okay? So, back to Jim. They were so controlled that if they wanted to date and have a relationship, they would have to go to Jim for approval. Then they'd have to have a trial period. And if they wanted to break up, they also had to ask for Jim's permission. So both parties could be like, you know what? You're not for me. You're not for me. Jim be like, well, it is for me. So.
Negative ghostwriter.
I like the whole, trial period thing. Like, this is a trial period. You start acting weird, I'm going to get out of here, okay? That sounds pretty
isn't that what dating is, the trial period?
Yeah, but, the whole, breakup thing. I wish a motherfucker tell me I couldn't get divorced or whatever. You see that?
Telling?
Don't even come at me, bro. Privacy was non-existent. There were 16 latrine holes for all the people. This is 600 plus people.
Shitting in 16 holes. Yum.
And the toilet paper was non-existent. It was an extravagance. And then they started using paper. And then they were like, oh, well, paper's too important. We need that for our documents, our jungle documents, keeping all these fastidious records. So use some leaves. And that's what they used.
See, I'm out right there.
Already.
First of all, you already told me I had to shit in a hole. So I'm already...
You told me I had to go to the jungle where I'm pretty sure I would die from some weird disease. Or a tiger. Or a tiger. Or a fucking snake or some shit.
Yeah.
And then you tell me a whole... No, motherfucker.
And then you get to tell me I got to use a leaf? I'm out.
Not today. You don't even have a bidet? Come on.
And I got to date Rob over here, who I don't like.
What even is this?
Are you trying to show me what hell is like? Because I feel like that's what you're trying to show me.
Is this hell on earth? I believe that hot, humid mess of that would be hell on earth.
Yeah, and it's hot and humid. With shitty assholes
you
running
always
around.
Sweating. Did I shit myself? Or is that sweat? I don't know.
Maybe I just didn't wipe real good.
These are
with my
questions
leaf.
I didn't think I'd have to ask myself.
Ugh. All I'm thinking about is shitholes in the hot humid, how awful it must have smelled.
Oh, absolutely.
Ew.
People were stacked up on top of each other. And if you want to talk about smell, showers and water were limited.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
People would go out and work in the fields all fucking day. come back, and they'd be allowed 2 minutes to wash their body. And then told, don't open your mouth because the water's polluted.
Oh.
Like,
okay,
well,
great.
shit.
Great.
Meanwhile, Jim's living like jungle royalty, okay?
Oh, I'm sure.
Thinking he's like Tarzan on amphetamines, okay? Him, Carolyn, Maria, along with John Victor, they lived in their own personal cottages. Jim's had a generator for a fridge and a fan, its own latrine.
No, sir.
And beds.
That's not going to work for me.
Mm-mm. His cottage was built in the same building as the radio room. So he wouldn't have to leave to even make calls, make announcements. And it also helped when he was like super fucking high and they'd have to drag him in there so he could do his amphetamine fueled rants because he also had a shit ton of health problems. So he was just a wreck at all fucking times. Like, awful.
Mm-mm.
There were unequal workloads, which led to long hours in the field toiling away. Most of those who had arrived were children and elderly, because you remember they had all those nursing homes. Plus, they loved to use the Social Security checks of those people.
So, yeah.
And then, of course, you have children that are being communally raised, that a third of it is children, a third of it is old people, and then you leave that third of able-bodied adults and like teenagers to do all the work of all those people.
Mm-mm.
Like, no, thank you.
And again, no showers, no water, no anything. And you have these old people who probably can't get to the bathroom like they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible for them, terrible for everybody.
Oh, they had to work double time. I mean, and you had it like, I would say nicer jobs, but not really. Like, you have to teach the children or you need to take care of the elderly. Not everybody was out in the fields, but fuck that. I'm not made for that life.
No, I'm not either.
So, with Jim's increasing paranoia, the People's Temple and him, they kept smuggling guns into the settlement from America somehow. I don't know how they did it. I'm not a smuggler, so I don't know. They wanted to protect the settlement, not from jungle cats, but from the forces that Jim believed to work to take his temple down. Eventually, he had all his radio operators talk in code to avoid suspicion. The code word for guns was Bibles. So, like, if you think about it, if they're radioing back to San Francisco, just this old, nice mission in Guyana, we need more Bibles, y'all. Nothing sounds suspicious about that. I think that sounds super suspicious. How are you not? Okay, is this like, didn't Wayfair have that thing where they're like, it was furniture that was highly overpriced and they had human names? Like, is this a human trafficking ring? I'm pretty sure Tiffany's not an armoire.
2 Susans and a Tiffany.
Oh, it is awful.
It just means couches, guys.
This is just couches. No big deal. Calm down. They ended up actually getting in trouble with the FCC because they weren't supposed to even be using the radio waves.
Shocking.
And they would talk about all sorts of things. They would talk about problem people. They would talk about getting supplies back and forth, money back and forth, all these different kind of movements with the temples that are stateside. But here's some ones about that kind of, it's hard to understand, but it's relating to the mass migration and a letter that they sent to the 600 Club. You know what the 600 Club is, right?
I know the name, but
it's like it was started by, what's her name? Tammy Faye Baker.
I was going to say televangelist group,
it's
right?
a televangelist thing. And they started the 600 Club. So it's just a shit ton of people taking money and preaching and shit. But I mean, of course, that's going to look attractive to these people as well. So I'm sure that they sent something to the 600 Club like, please pray for us. We a mission. Give us some money. Maybe some guns.
Start a club like that.
Maybe some cyanide.
Oh, well, I just want to be a club where people send me money to talk. Wait, that's a podcast. Okay, never mind.
We're already doing it.
Except I don't make any money.
Also, there is going to be a point that you hear an FBI agent kind of like comment over the transmission because he's listening to it. So it's like a recording of a recording. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
We would like to figure out how many people you're talking about, over. Okay, here's stand by.
The man's voice is coming from the West Coast. The woman from Guyana. Seems
Okay, is Martha there?
Roger. Seems that Guyana's directing this thing.
Okay, a couple of nights ago, you got instructions from Julia to get out a letter to the head of the 600 Club, over. Is that a Roger? Okay, there's two letters from the same person. One of those stuff was given one night, one the next night, but it's two individual letters that we're supposed to go out. Can you see if that?
So it just kind of keeps going on and on, back and forth. None of it's important conversations, and they're vaguely being like copy over standby, and then they just have casual conversation. I'm like, y'all don't know how radios work, do you? There was also like a satellite Jonestown in Guyana in Georgetown, which was the capital of Guyana. You have those stateside churches like in Redwood Valley, Ukiah, and San Francisco, LA, and then you have the one on Matthews Ridge and then Georgetown. And they would use those radio frequencies to talk back and forth. The embassy in Georgetown, loosely called an embassy, I'm pretty sure it was just like a flop house almost.
Right.
It would be vital because since the settlement was so far out, you had to have some people there to, you know, like schmooze and make sure the politicians are not diming them out to the U.S. and their secret forces, which is what they thought was happening. I am sure you wonder what life was like for Jonestown. I'm sure you have like a little idea of how terrifying it would have been, but just the thought of what their day-to-day. Well, good news. Edith Roller kept a meticulous diary of her time there. And it started like her diary, she'd done it like her whole life. And it started about the People's Temple over stateside. And she would put down names, dates, trivial things, big things, punishments, good
nice.
deeds. It was very cataloged. She would write the journal, then she'd type it out.
Oh,
Like very, I mean, I'm like, oh, I like that.
me too.
You know, I'll be able to go back and read it because I can't read my handwriting. Once she gets to Guyana, she doesn't really necessarily have all those resources, but she does still continue to talk about just the daily drawl of being a Jonestown settler. She was a 63-year-old woman, though. She had a PhD, and she differed from the majority of the People's Temple congregation. She was Caucasian, and she had an advanced university degree. A lot of the people that went to Guyana, not saying that they were idiots or something like that, they just had been through a lot of stuff in their own life. They were minorities, had gone through desegregation and, you know, all the prevalent racism that was still around. So, like, these people are just thankful for the life that they have. And then you have someone like her that's almost like a fad that she just kept going.
Yeah.
In her notes, she talked about everything from that their room and board, shelter, all that was provided for. And no currency was ever used. There was no Jonestown bills. I'm sure if he had thought about that, he probably would have had it, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think how hard he'd get thinking he'd have a $5 bill with his fucking face on it? Just ones with different ones of his concubines. They received 3 meals a day, with the exception of Sunday. Since they'd only work half days, they would just receive 2 meals.
Oh.
Right. Entertainment was big. Even though stateside, he like shunned movies, TV shows. Once they got out to the sticks, they were like, we need some fucking entertainment. So the U.S. temples would send stuff over to the Guyana temple, and they would watch films. They even would do like not Looney Tunes. It was something like some kids' cartoons and stuff. Like all these little things just to make life a little bit easier. I'm like, bitch, I'm still sweating my ass off. How's it fucking watching Gone with the Wind going to help me?
Yeah, and I'm still shitting in a hole. Gone with the Wind is not
No.
making this life better.
They had their own choir, okay? And they created their own record in 1973 called He's Able. And they were very big on music from Nat King Cole to Earth, Wind, and Fire. And so music was a huge thing. He always had something on the speaker system day or night. Sometimes it would be music, but mostly it was his sermons. And he would read the news to the temple, including things from like Radio Moscow, Radio Havana, which were also communist areas. If he was too tired to speak, he would just play recordings of old sermons.
Just when I thought that hell of a place couldn't get any worse, now I have to listen to you all day on the intercom over the loudspeaker.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck me.
Like the music have to be like a very small portion of what he played. The rest of it was him talking about how this is happening stateside and I'm saved your lives and blah, 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 blah. And Jesus this and communist that. And it was just, that's 24/7.
Yeah.
And you're already fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
And
hungry.
You have that, it just kind of numbs you. Sometimes, though, they would unplug the speakers just to get a little bit of silence. Like, he's in there just ranting. Just let him do it. Take it off. Give us 30 minutes apiece.
Just like I told you when my daughter gets overwhelmed, doesn't want to talk to me, and she unplugs the show.
You're like, oh my God, she's a future cult leader.
Yes.
Talking about how tired they were, their workday started at 6 a.m. Doesn't sound too bad. Well, we'll tell you why it's so bad. It would start with revelry, and by 6:30, you'd be in the fields. And then you'd work for 6 grueling hours in like the hottest part of the fucking day of the goddamn jungle.
Mm-mm.
And unless you were allocated somewhere like caring for the elderly and babies, school-age children. When children got a little bit older, they would too be toiling in the fields. Stateside members would send disgruntled teens, actually, pre-Exodus, to teach them a lesson of hard work in Guyana.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that. If some of these bad kids around here we sent to work in a field, I bet their motherfucking attitudes would change.
Real quick. So after working all fucking day in the fields, guess what they got to do next? 6 hours of mandatory classes.
Oh, fuck.
They would be classes on socialism and other directives that he thought that they needed to know, such as Russian language class, because at one point they thought they were going to leave and go to Russia. They also talked about going to Cuba again. So he would, whatever at the moment he needed to learn.
I'm exhausted hearing about everything they had to do. I couldn't imagine having to do it.
Fucking right. Dinner would be around 6:30, and then there would be a rally at 7:30. These are where they'd have their meetings, and they would sit with Jim while he did his sermons, and he would be sitting in a lawn chair, and he would be talking into Mike, just like sitting like kind of laid back,
like
holding the mic. Like,
think of like a barbecue around a bonfire, and there's the one guy like chilling in the lawn chair that won't shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
Everybody's listening like, shut up, dude.
But instead of a beer, this one's a mic, you know?
Yeah.
And he would talk for hours.
God.
And he would just
Did they lay down and go to sleep? Because that's totally what I would have done.
Well, he would be riding high on amphetamines. Everybody else would be fucking exhausted. It would be standing room only once everybody gathered. And if you did fall asleep, you would be yelled at or brought in front of the whole group to be berated or beat.
I wouldn't give a fuck. Put me in the box.
Put me in the box.
I'm happy to go in the box and go to sleep. By the way, what were they tilling in the fields?
Sorghum, not sorghum, cassava, and it's a type of root that is really used in like South American cuisine, I believe.
Jimmy's Fun Facts. Cassava is a versatile starchy root vegetable native to South America. Cassava is rich in nutrients, possesses a nutty flavor, and is cultivated primarily for its roots, although the leaves are certainly edible. The roots, or tubers, can be used to make flour, breads, alcoholic beverages, and also tapioca. In what could be considered a quote-unquote I can't make this up matter of coincidence, cyanide-producing sugar derivatives occur in most varieties. There is a complex method of leaching the poison from the roots, and this poison, known as hydrocyanic acid, has been used historically for dart and arrow tips. If the cassava is not prepared properly, consumption could potentially result in cyanide intoxication, and longer-term exposure can lead to serious medical problems.
They really couldn't grow much at all because
that's
the
what I was
soil
thinking.
was
It's
so
not like they were
shit.
out there tilling lettuce and potatoes and corn.
No. Everything
like
else
actual
fucking
food
died.
they could eat.
It was like cassava, which I think is used in some things, but it's not enough. What they ate most of the time is stuff that you could buy in bulk, like huge bags of rice
And beans.
and beans and then little scraps of meat because like
No, fuck that. I'd be on the first plane back to America.
mm.
America.
Exactly. And that's what they got, like fucking 3 meals a day unless it was Sunday and then you only got 2 because you only worked half a day. Like, bitch,
Yeah,
that's when I need it.
exactly. It's my rest day.
God damn.
I want all the calories. No cakes, no treats, no cupcakes, no cookies, huh? No
Nothing.
cheesecake.
Nothing.
If I can't have cheesecake and hot wings and french fries, this isn't a life I want to live. I'm just saying.
What is life without hot wings, okay?
It's not a life I want to live.
So the meetings would be in 3 phases. You would have your entertainment singing, just kind of get the congregation up and going.
Yeah, because I got so much fucking energy to get up and dance and have a hoedown.
Exactly, right? And then they would talk about an agriculture report. And that would be different members.
The roots are growing. What? Done. Report finished.
And all these like people that were here were like farmers from Indiana. So yes, they knew how to grow things, but things were so fucking different there.
Yeah.
You know, you had different kinds of molds and funguses and things that
And
you would have
insects.
to.
And yeah.
Exactly. So it was a lot of trial and error and not really a lot of any success.
I'm irritated by this lifestyle like I'm living there as I'm covered up in a blanket in the air conditioning. Just from hearing about it, like it makes me cranky. Makes me feel like hangry.
Irrationally.
Yes.
Irrationally angry.
Yes. I'm not for that life. I wouldn't. They'd string me up in a heartbeat.
Amen. Preach. I have a tape where they're doing an agriculture report. There is going to be a part where they talk about the learning crew, and we're going to go more in depth on that later, but it's not a good thing. I'll tell you that.
Is this report 5 seconds? Hey, Jim, just report. Roots are growing. Nothing else.
Report shit ain't working. The fuck we leave California for?
End report.
Be done.
Okay, so like that. So then what you're saying is, in Sebastian and Ronnie should be inclusive in the stirring and here, and I agree. And since I had the floor, when we were looking into the sugar cane, there's a red eye that's in the sugar cane that was in the sugar cane up in Matthews Ridge, and they discontinued. That's why they're not using the cane grater or the chopper. They discontinued using it because of this red streak that's in the sugar cane. And I noticed in our sugar cane, it has the same kind of red circle in it. And we were told the other day that it meant that the sugar cane was infected, and that when it was given to the animals, to the cattle particularly, it affected them. So I'd like some research done on this in terms of our sugar cane and what can be done to cure it before we go into this big old project of planting sugar cane and it's all infected. Because I don't know how much of that is like that, but there is some of that sugar cane that's out there now for seeds or seeding that has that red stuff in it.
Okay, I'll check onto it.
With dispatch.
I'm sure we can conquer this. It's only a matter of we're more scientific in our approach than any of these other cooperatives, including the Government Institute. And we've got to get even more industrious, but that's a very important and salient point, John. We need to get that cured before we go into mass farming.
And so that was 2 different people. It sounded like Maria Katsaris, but at the end it was Jim Jones. But like, how you gonna do research in the jungle? Ain't no Googles.
Well, I like the way that they really try to sound it. Jim Jones really tries to sound intelligent. Like, I'm not even sure why he threw in about the national government or whatever, what the fuck that has to do with the red eye and the sugar cane. But it's like he tries to like throw in like hot words to make himself sound like really important and really intelligent, when really that conversation could have lasted 15 seconds. Like, hey, there's a red eye in the sugar cane. I heard it's infection. We can't plant a whole bunch without it. All right, cool. Figure out what that is. Get what we need to kill it, and let's carry on. But it's like, well, contact the American government here, and we'll get right on that. I'm like, what are we doing here? What's going on? You're high, aren't you? Oh, that's right, you are.
We all have that friend that has like a hobby and it becomes like a personality trait and they just talk about it all the time. I'm probably one of those friends when it comes to like crime and horror and things like that. But Jim Jones is like that about communism and government and a conspiracy. So it's like, let me tell you about this sugar cane, okay? We're going to call the government because they're putting fucking cameras in her goddamn sugar cane.
Yes.
That's
Nailed
fucking
it.
love you, Jim. No, I'm just kidding. So he would speak for hours, right? Sometimes it would end at like 10. Sometimes it would end up at like 2 a.m.
Oh, fuck that. And then they had to get back up at 6 and go to work?
Uh-huh.
No, bro.
Lights out.
I'm hitting snooze.
Lights out was 11 p.m. And then sometimes he would talk even into the morning, leaving people with either no or just a few hours of sleep.
No, fuck that.
Mm-mm.
Fuck off, Jim Jones. That's what I would say.
Fuck you.
I'd be like, can I get a name in? Fuck you.
And they did this day in, day out. There was no real change in seasons there, really, because it's a fucking jungle.
Hot.
Yeah, like
that is the season all year. Hot.
It's literally purgatory.
Yeah.
I mean, what did I listening to Jim Jones for hours after having to listen to communist shit for hours after working my ass off in the field for hours, and I get rice and beans for dinner? Bitch, we all dying.
Yeah. No wonder they all readily drank the Kool-Aid. I would too.
Just take me now. Take me now. So, while they had dreams of sustainability, we're going to talk about those poor soil conditions and the influx of people that made it incredibly hard. Before the mass exodus, he sent a picture from a visit to Guyana, and it was of him and fruits and vegetables, talking about, okay, the beginning, the pioneer settlers, they grew all this. No, he went to the market, bought that shit, and then staged it with pictures. Of course. It was never eaten, ever. They initially planned to live off the money made from the surplus of crops. But that never happened.
No, when all you're growing is a spice root.
The crushing food costs from the new settlers meant less to go around, and they resorted to the earlier staples of PB&J, as well as cassava flour and rice. They tried to raise chickens and pigs, but none would survive long enough to harvest eggs or meat. They stuck with water or knockoff Kool-Aid called Flavor Aid.
I know Flavor Aid.
And
I'm familiar with that.
We were talking about desserts. They did from time to time, but it was a rarity. And it would be usually cookies, and it would be only on Sunday. And Jim would go out and give them one by one in this huge display. Like a whole bunch of orphan children, like, please, so can I have some more?
You come at me with one cookie, and that's it.
I'll come at you with these hands.
I'm just going to snatch a whole bunch and shove them in my face real quick before you can take them back.
What you gonna do, Jim? What you gonna do? He would send people out begging the surrounding areas of Georgetown and all that, begging for money to support the mission. To the point that, like, they had tapped out. Like, nobody else is like, okay, we done give you the monies. They're like that homeless person who is really strung out and they forget that they've told you the same story 3 weeks in a row. Like that. So they started to make toys and dolls from like scrap wood and fabric just to make like money and little bits of extra money to support the colony. And when you say squeeze blood from a turnip, they didn't know Jim Jones could accomplish that. They lived bare in California. They lived destitute in Guyana.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
When people arrived at Jonestown, now they know this. They've already given up most of their shit, their familial and friend connections. They gave up property, like literal land. So they didn't have a lot, right? You think you'd get there and you'd be fine. No, they took even more. You were left with literally the clothes on your back.
And no way to get out of that situation once you're over there.
Nope. So one way they did that was they took their passports immediately. Everybody's passports. The people that stayed stateside, they would send money over. And so they were also trying to hustle. The collection, though, kind of started to piddle out when the article in 1977 came out about the abuse and the sexual assault that happened. Just a fraction what they used to take in before. And then the elderly, they gave up their Social Security checks. And then at one point, the United States Postal Service refused to send them. All that money was gone. And that was like, they were raking in money from that.
I was just thinking, like, they should have some money to get in all these Social Security checks. But there you go. That's why.
That's a good question. That was a perfect segue. Were they broke? Not at all. At the end, the temple had $30 million to its name.
Stop. And these people can't even have toilet paper?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this motherfucker
A
here.
good bit of it was in cash reserves. And when they were coming to Jonestown, Jim had many of his people smuggle money on their bodies. Like, obviously, pre 9/11 TSA, okay? And there was so much that really, there's no actual figure they could actually give us, because he would have accounts, foreign accounts, put in like Marceline and his children's names and shift money around to lose people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they'll never find me. And he would like stash money away, like literal actual cash. And the temple looked poor, but when then you started finding all these other reserves and everything, and it added up to that value, it was like, the fuck?
I mean, doesn't he realize, like, if he would have built up this place a little bit more, not had people so destitute, and like actually lived like a commune, that he probably would have gotten more people, and then he would have gotten more money.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. But I think somebody like Jim probably was like what do they say? Like, all CEOs and stuff like that are psychopaths,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't necessarily turn to harm in their life. They're just psychopaths. I feel like Jim Jones was that, and then he got into drugs, and the drugs burned the paranoia, and all these other contributing factors are what led to that downfall. I think by the time they were looking to go to Guyana, it was already too far gone.
Yeah.
And the whole holding all that money, that money, they could have lived off of that money for generations before they ran out.
And they could have had some cheesecake.
And you know
That's
what's
all I'm
fucked
saying. He could have bought him a cheesecake.
up? He could have bought just one or two. Did
And
you
he
not
could have
watch The
bought-
Golden Girls? Oh, wait, it wasn't out at that time.
He could have bought name brand Kool-Aid, not Flavor
Name
Aid.
brand.
Can't even get name brand Kool-Aid.
Not even. And it was probably like the shitty flavors too. Ugh.
Yeah.
Everybody knows fruit punch is the best.
Duh.
It's like when you have that person that comes like, I like grape. Ooh.
Or lemon.
I love doing it. Like, I like that purple flavor. I like the red flavor. I didn't know red was a flavor. Not only did he know that, his entire upper echelon knew it. And they were so fucking devoted that they knew they had the money and still didn't fucking had to tell anybody about it.
Mm-mm.
They knew they could use more than leaves, but they kept using leaves.
Can't nobody get me under a spell that much.
Part of the reason, though, for that secret was the purpose of the mission itself was to create a true self-sustaining communist lifestyle.
We can do that with toilet paper.
Yeah, but relying on savings, that's not self-sustaining. And that's where
It is, though.
this fucked up logic to him that was like, oh, well, obviously, how are we going to be successful if we don't have to make everybody suffer? Wipe their shit with fucking leaves and stuff. He also eventually had to put up the LA and Redwood Valley churches because there was no membership. It was just draining more money out of the millions that he had. So he put those up for sale. And with times being hard, and I mean hard on people, he wanted to lay the hammer down to keep them in line. So before in San Francisco, he would beat them. That came out in that article. But on Marceline's suggestion to steer away from physical punishment due to the article released, he created the Learning Crew. Rule breakers were on the Learning Crew. They were ostracized. They were forced to live separately, eat separately, go to the bathroom separately. They had to run everywhere. To the bathroom, to the pavilion, to the fields. You weren't allowed to walk.
Is that where they're saying, you gonna learn today?
And they were not allowed to talk.
First of all, if you told me I couldn't talk and I had to run, I'd tell you to fuck right off.
Yeah. Either one of those things, I'd be like, alone. I can't talk. Fuck you.
Let me just go to the jungle and let a tiger get me now.
Get me now, tiger.
Matter of fact, I'll run to the tiger. How about that, Jim?
Open your mouth. Here I come.
I'm gonna run right in.
Gives a whole new definition to I'm a snack. But like, this would go on they would be in there for an undetermined. It wasn't like you'd get sentenced in a court and they'd be like, okay, you got 6 months of Learning Crew. He would just, whenever he decided for you to come off, that would be it.
See, I would be up in there like rallying people to like revolt and let's have a takeover.
Attica! Attica!
Yeah.
So as you talked earlier, you're like, how are these people even going to leave? Like, they're pretty much stranded. Yes, they are. They're in an extremely remote part of a third world country. They did not have their passports. They had no money. It was a literal prison. A jungle prison.
All I have to sell is my body, and nobody wants it.
There's always somebody, baby. They were surrounded by dense and dangerous forests, so if they got past the guards at the Jonestown gate, which was there at all times, they would have to find a way to Port Kaituma. And that's 7 miles of rough terrain, of jungle and dangerous wildlife, and they were geographically isolated that way.
Well, when you send me to beg in the streets, I'm not coming back.
I know. Not today. Leon Broussard was one of the members. He actually struck out and wandered the jungle for days before a native found him and took him to Port Kaituma. He was fucking lucky.
Yeah.
Because like they said, like you go in that forest, even the guides were wary because you could walk ahead 5 feet, turn around, and everything looks the same. You could not distinguish.
That's okay. I'd rather die in the jungle being eaten by a tiger. I cannot emphasize that enough.
Like, wait, did you register my opinion here? I will not do it.
My first thought when you said a native found him was, fuck. I was almost to the tiger and ate, and you found me and brought me back.
Well, you'll take me to Port Kaituma. Thank you so much.
I thought you were going to say you took him back to the temple, and I'm like,
oh.
At least he got to go to the town.
Right? But lucky for him, though, U.S. Consulate Richard McCoy was there, and he was coming to visit about, like, there's, like, you know, all this stuff happening, the reports of the abuse. So he came. Like, people would come, like, almost like social workers in a way, and visit Jonestown.
Oh, and everybody said everything was good. The same as
It's good.
beaten children do when the CPS worker shows up.
Exactly.
And you interview them in front of the parents. They're like, oh, yeah, mom and dad are angels.
So he happened to be in town, and so they took him to him, and he said, Jonestown's a literal slave camp. Punishments varied from being beaten to being buried alive. He stated Jones wouldn't let him go.
Okay, that would keep me in line. If you told me you're going to bury me alive, I'd run everywhere and do what you said. Because
I would take my chances in the jungle.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Maybe I'll be
terrifying.
like Mowgli and they'll like adopt me or something out in the jungle.
The tigers? Be Tarzan? Could I become Tarzan?
Be Tarzan. I think the apes adopted him.
The little boy from the Jungle Book?
Yeah. Leon's like, the fuck? He said that Jones wouldn't let him have his passwords. Leon's like,
passport. You said password?
Yeah, sorry. So he stated that Jones would not let him go. He held his passport kind of hostage. And when Richard McCoy confronted Jim Jones about what Leon said, he was like, Leon's a fucking liar. But fine, here's his passport and good riddance.
Lies.
And Richard McCoy made sure that he was going to pay for Leon's way home because before he refused to do that. And then he also said, if anyone else wants to, you also have to pay their return flights as well.
I'd be like, right here, this girl.
Are you a tiger?
Is there cheesecake on the plane?
Please say so. Nobody accepted except for Leon.
Fuck that.
All of them wanted to stay and they were just happy.
No, they were scared
Mm-hmm.
and brainwashed.
They were tired. They were up.
They probably thought it was a mirage.
Right?
They were so dehydrated and
a fucking
underfed.
man or a tiger? I don't know. Jim made it clear that the temple paid their way there and they would be responsible on their way home. But, you know, considering all that they had done and estranged them, you know, it was just unfair to do that. Even though Richard McCoy was like, you're going to do that. He's like, the fuck I am, bitch. When you leave here, it's Jim's rules. It's Jim's baby. Yolanda Crawford and her family defected just a week after Jones arrived, but they had to pay their own way home. And it was a luxury nearly none of them had.
Yeah.
He also required her to never speak against the church for fear of being stabbed in the back. And I'm saying he threatened her. You will be stabbed in the back if you talk against the church.
Sure, Jim. Got it. Not going to do it. Sure.
He also required her to fabricate a few stories to incriminate her in crimes like murder or overthrowing the governor of Georgetown. He also had her sign those in the event that if she did speak against the church, he could turn him into the police. And she's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
She's like, I know he wasn't going to do a damn thing. So fuck it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Have me sign it, baby. Let's go. Ain't no damn notary here, nothing.
Right.
A third, so going back to the population, we realized that a third of the population was pensioners, but these pensioners were also Black, and they had went through some of the worst times of their life. So Jim would tell them stories like the KKK is expanding and they're putting people in concentration camps. They believed him because
I'd be like, I'm in one right now, Jim.
these are the same people who would have, crosses lit in their yard.
They
and
had lived through
seen
the real
lynchings.
slavery. Yeah.
So they're like, this is real. This
Right.
could happen. Whereas if someone did that to me today and said that the KKK was expanding, and I'd be like, sir, I'm going to need you to put the meth down
Exactly.
and tell me more because I need to know. They had medical treatment. These seniors did. They had food. They had places to sleep. They were not alone. They didn't have to work much. They pretty much just put the finishing touches on the toys. So by all accounts, their life in Guyana would be far better than it would be stateside.
Right.
So
That's really sad. That to manipulate somebody with that type of situation. You know what I mean? And the things that they had already lived through, like that is actually very heartbreaking.
it is. And, yes, they have to give up all their possessions and their monthly Social Security check. But what a bargain, though, to live in a slave colony cult in Guyana. That's depressing.
Stop it.
And then we have the 300 children that were too young to work. They only got to see their parents at dinner time for a little short amount of time. They were not their parents. Jim was their father. Beginning in kindergarten and up to 12th grade, they had like a Montessori style of teaching method with a dash of communism. By dash, I mean a whole fucking lot. Like the top of the salt came off. They were taught to respect the teachers and study hard. And they were reminded, and often, that Jonestown was for them. It reminds me of the movie Omen. Do you remember that? And the girl kills herself. It's all for you, Damien. It's all for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you have to be that woman. They were tired, excruciatingly tired from all the work. The constant studying, the droning sermons. It was too much, and they could barely think moment to moment, much less plan their way out.
Oh, yeah.
That sleep deprivation,
It's real.
it's real. It breaks you down. Also, Port Kaituma's airstrip was a slow, desolate airport. So even if they did make it to Port Kaituma,
It could be a long time before.
before a plane is going out. So the enforcers were more than likely going to make contact before they even had the opportunity to get on a plane. And with the guns and the security, that's terrifying. They didn't have many guns. They said they had 25 in total, but that's 25 guns against people who have nothing.
Yeah. I'd be making a shank.
So stateside, Jim Jones was effervescent. People loved him, adored him. He was able to really hide the dark parts of his life from all his congregants, right? When he came to Guyana, though, he was in the community. He lived among them. He lived he ate among them. There was nowhere he could hide his fallacies. He was cracking under the pressure of the bad press in America and the constant drug use. And he started to gain some serious weight, which is crazy because he was in a hot-ass jungle.
Yeah, but he wasn't doing anything.
No, but how much are you eating that you are in a hot-ass jungle? Because I don't want to eat when it's that hot, one.
He had a fan.
And you're on amphetamines.
True.
Amphetamines will keep you from being hungry. So, sir, are you busting it out? He gained so much weight. And everybody there, is working their ass off, so they're all tiny.
Yeah.
Everybody shared clothes there, right?
And he's getting fat and having to get his clothes let out.
He had to have them ordered from America.
Because he was so fat?
He was so fat. Nobody had no shirts to fit him.
That's not okay.
His power was fading, so he started using the power of fear against his people. The sadism he expressed flooded into other members too, where the abuse is not just coming from him, it's coming from your friends and your family. So I have a couple of recordings of things that happen. I will say probably the next 5 to 10 minutes, if you're kind of like, if emotional abuse and physical abuse bother you, which it should everybody, but to a really big triggering degree, you might want to skip ahead. So the first recording I have is a woman, and she is terrified of snakes. And Jim Jones is making her touch a snake and putting it around her neck and stuff.
What the hell do you want to die with diabetes? You go blind? That's a smart-ass remark to make, Juanita.
I don't even remember.
You never do. If you all keep feeding me like this, I am going to work like I'm fed. Give me a little food and I'll do a little work. Put a trip hammer on your mouth. Dessa Jordan. Okay. Give it to her. Give it to her. Give it to her. I'm sick of this shit. Let her deal with it, motherfucker. If he wants to choke her to death, that's his business tonight. I'm tired of it.
You said the same thing the last time. So this is the next.
Turn around, look at the people. Turn around, look at the people. Talk to them. See if they want to get the snake off your back.
I apologize. I never promised I wouldn't do it again. I never promised I wouldn't do it again. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I won't do it again. I really promise. I'm married again.
Nothing else works for this woman. This only lasts 6-7 days. If we fed it to her, maybe that might work. I don't know. Okay. Okay. Turn around. Turn around. What's this?
Thank you, Dad.
Now, I mean, Kay, I don't know why you think you can put us through this every night. He about got you that time, didn't he?
Yes, Dad. I'm sorry. Thank you.
You haven't seen nothing yet. You know how long he gonna be? About 37.5 feet long. He's just a baby. That's what's out there.
She keeps on, she'll be snake free before then.
Hi, you old sweet fellow. I like him. The more I see these fuckers, the more I like them. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that grip. That's a grip. You're a good guy. Boy, they love that snake dance. She went through the snake dance in Georgetown. Fantastic. She went fantastic. The snake danced with her. Head was out dancing with her. Oh, what do you do? Shit on her?
At the end there, he was holding the snake, and I guess it shit all over the place. But just like you could hear the other people, you're going to learn today, like all chiming in. Like
that's what I was just going to say. Like, I'm losing sympathy for these people because how could they sit there and cheer that on?
I mean, even her, she felt like she deserved it. At the end, she's telling him, thank you. Thank you for doing this to me.
Well, she probably was because she was scared shitless. So she's saying whatever to get out of the situation and make him think she's going to be a good girl.
I mean, it's just, and you could hear the distress.
This is when I would pull my shank out and stab Jim Jones right in the neck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't condone violence, though, guys.
No violence. Except when it's Jim Jones.
Yeah.
So they also used the isolation box for members where they'd shut them up there for days. It was a 6x4 sensory deprivation chamber. That's what they called it. And I'm like, I don't know if it was sensory deprivation because I think people could talk through it. And when it's sensory deprivation, it's supposed to be. But maybe it's like his loose term for it. Like, this is sensory deprivation. Jim, do you know what that is? I don't think you know what that is. Stop trying to use these words. This is a kid, pretty much. He's like a teenage boy. And they're talking about putting him in the box. And he is going to be beat by senior citizens.
Great punk.
When
Put him in the fucking box with the frog tonight. Then see if you can stay away from the frog. One touch of the fucking frog. How about that, Willie boy? Big old ganglang Willie boy. How about going in the box tonight with the frog?
Dad,
How about the frog?
truthfully,
Get the frog. Why don't you put your hand in there with the frog?
Dad.
Come on, Willie boy. Put your hand in there. Put your hand in there, Willie boy. Chop. Put your hand in there. Put your hand in there, Willie boy. We might as well be free from you. Nobody else see it. Nobody else see it.
Thank you, Billy. I told you to, right?
Dad, when you're talking about being a crazy...
Got no problem. It's your problem. You touch a frog, you're dead.
You can take anything you think.
You take anything. How about Willie? How about it, Willie? Want to touch a frog tonight, Willie? You punk, you goddamn gangland punk. You've caused us trouble week after week, month after month. Got my blood pressure boiling, punk. Ah, see, he's tough. He's tough. He can handle anything. Handle his frog, Willie.
I know I can, Dad.
Handle it, pup. To open up and take it.
When Dad was talking about being a crazy nigger, that the only way you can win is to be a crazy nigger, Willie started saying, Dad, you were talking about being a crazy nigger, and that's the only way you can win. And Willie started saying, that's right. Like the only way he was going to win by being a crazy nigger.
You want to die, do you, Willie? I don't give a shit tonight. Want to die, Willie?
No, I don't, Dad, but I'm not afraid to.
What's that?
I don't want to die, but I ain't afraid to.
Well, then go ahead and die.
I don't want to.
Huh?
I don't want to.
Be a big tough. Hold it. Let's think it through. The son of a bitch jump out.
Dad,
What about it?
Dad, you know, like I said, I don't want to. You know, I said that I was just pissed at the time. I mean, I didn't say it was your fault. I mean, at first I tried to hold it against you that how come I didn't get off the crew, but I didn't feel it was your fault. I felt it was pinning them because they didn't give you the right information. And
No. Last rally. No, it's no 2 days. Well, it's your whole attitude, and you don't never exhibit a good attitude.
You're not afraid to die. You're not afraid to die, and you're not standing for anything. I'd be ashamed to die if I were you. Defying an organization for socialism, I'd be ashamed to die.
Dad,
quit talking.
What reason we got to think you won't change? I don't think you will change where you're going.
Dad, if it was some other way, you know, I feel that everybody's up here, you know, hitting. I'd rather let some senior that has some pain, not Sebastian and the rest of these guys. I mean, no. I mean, I know you're gonna kick my ass, but you know.
Yeah, well, you don't know that any other time.
You're so one at a time. You're talking about our pain. You're talking about our seniors' pain. If you were talking about our seniors' pain, you wouldn't be up here keeping them up at 1 o'clock in the morning. You want the seniors? You want the seniors?
Dad, really?
John, get out of the way. Let the seniors have it.
Come on, Willie. So tough now.
So the frog that they're talking about is a poisonous frog. That's why they're like, touch the frog, touch the frog, touch the frog. And they have him like in a little box, put his hand in his box, in the box to touch the frog. And this kid was, I guess, on the work crew and someone else got off before him and he had been there longer. And so he was upset. And even then, remember how those kids defected? And they were all like, it's not your fault, Dad. It's these other people. That kid does the same thing. Like, he doesn't want to anger him. Like, I thought it was you, but it wasn't. I'm so sorry. It was these bitches. And just like this whole breakdown. And the guy who you hear his voice towards the end is Stephen Jones. And that's Jim Jones' only natural born child. He actually does survive through all of that. But I have a hard time having sympathy for him too.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of these people, but it's also like, man, you got sleep deprivation, and then you have people get this mentality, like the same ones when they burn a city down, things that people normally would not do in a singular environment, but in a crowd.
That mob mentality.
Mm-hmm. So it was, they do use a lot of, I don't understand how they use the disparaging racial terms. But
Oh, no.
he uses it quite a bit. So if the public beatings and the ostracism did not work, he would then turn people over to Dr. Schacht for what they called a special care unit. This is where they basically kept them drugged up in a coma-like state, shut away.
I think I'd rather have that. Then I'm not at least working in the field, shitting in a hole.
Yeah. Your body is your literal prison. It would be even minor infractions. And in one instance, it was a girl who denied his advances, Jim Jones's advances. And so he handed her over to Dr. Schacht, and he drugged her and kept her in a room where she could be Jim Jones' sex slave. And was there until the day that the massacre happened. So it's terrifying. His anger starts ramping up in the recordings as well. You can hear where he's grabbing that kid just in his voice and how he kind of shakes and he's so angry. And listening to him, as time goes on, his slurring gets worse and stuff like that. How old do you think he is?
You would assume old, but I'm guessing like 40s.
Yeah, he's 45. You would think he was an elderly man with dementia because of the weird way he'll talk about this and then he jumps to a completely different subject and then goes back, and all these weird ways of speaking that you feel like something cognitively is off.
FYI, just put a disclaimer out there, people. That's what drugs does to you, okay?
Mm-hmm. This is your brain on drugs.
You want to look 60 or 70 at 30 or 40? Be Jim Jones and do a lot of speed and meth and
start a cult.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a recording. It's about 3.5 minutes, but it's some of his angry rants.
Watch that blackboard. Put it over there closer. We don't want to destroy it. Have to worry about every piece of property. And if you did, I would be able to be much more the gentle father instead of having to give so many rules. We all were guilty. Not only do we have to look outside the United States, 200 people were killed by the FBI and Wounded Knee. Who pays the FBI? Your taxes. The FBI that murdered the black leaders, Panthers, Malcolm, I just read to you tonight in the news. Who murdered them? You. Me. Our dollars. And you sit there looking tired. Fuck you! I'm going to come out and beat your head now. At least you should stay with it tonight, because I don't talk. I usually don't talk. Got no reason to feel tired. You ought to feel guilty tonight. You have a plenty to eat. You can go back for seconds. I passed a woman today. She's 20 to 30 pounds too heavy, and the plate was heaped like it looked like something you'd give to a hog. You got no right. You got no right to complain. No right to complain. Not one right in the world. When little babies are dying in mother's arms, when children are being napalmed in Mozambique on the border, as they were last night, you got no right, because your tax dollars paid for the napalm. Your taxpayers' dollar, yours, every one of you. You old people think you always get uptight over sex. You wouldn't do anything. Some of you wouldn't. Fuck, oh, that's so terrible. Fuck for socialism. That's so horrible. Boy, I'm glad our freedom didn't depend on you. I'm very glad I didn't feel as sanctified, holy as you. Or we wouldn't have the medical equipment, the $10,000 microscope, just one of them alone, $10,000. We wouldn't have the $10,000 coming in X-ray. We wouldn't have the electrocardiograms, 2 of them. Wouldn't have them. What the hell? You always questioning my honesty. Questioning my honesty. Anybody didn't know that I gave all these millions up when I could have collected it. You people would have given it to me. When I healed you, how many have I healed here? How many have I got out of trouble? How many have I got your loved ones out of jail? All right, for Christ's sake. Yes. He said I got us out of jail. Now, wouldn't you give me the money? You'd have given me the money. Well, you did one time. You signed it all over. When they wouldn't follow me, they signed it over. I don't know, it's a few $100,000. Did I take it? Hell no. Obviously I didn't take it. Got my first shirt. Somebody passed this down the way. I don't know whose it was. It's too heavy. It's not good for work out in the field, but at least it's a shirt that isn't too tight on me. Oh, and I still got the same 2 pair of pants with holes in them. So obviously I'm not taking advantage. Who in the hell would want this as a picnic? Somebody says he's going to one of the first comers. They said, well, there's some rumor that I'm going to come over here and make slaves out of the people and then kick you.
After the mass exodus to Guyana, many of the families of people in Jonestown heard only positive things about the People's Temple in letters and from those in Guyana, but something seemed off. Some of the families came together and compared letters and discovered a ton of lies that many of the girls were engaged to Dr. Schacht. This wasn't really what happened. They weren't really engaged, but in this flow of information that he's controlling so well, he's like, what parent wouldn't want their daughter engaged to a doctor?
Right.
So they're probably, and if a doctor's attached, it's got to be legit, right? So it takes away the doubt and questions. And it's just like a placeholder, like, oh yeah, I'm engaged to this doctor, no big deal. The families formed the Concerned Relatives Collective. Grace Stone, who had defected, joined as well due to her battle for custody of the godchild John in Jonestown. Did John hear that? Have you told him about that?
No, I forgot about it. I need to tell him.
I just realized, I was like, man, I've been meaning to ask you about that. Then
sometimes when I leave here, I try to block out what we talked about.
I don't blame you because it gets real dark.
It does.
I just love the look of your face and more shock that you're getting during these recordings.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, especially when they said those words. I was like, oh,
my pearls, where are they at? I need to clutch them.
I need to clutch them.
Then the most prolific turning point happens with a defection, and it's Tim Stone. Remember, Tim Stone was the attorney for the People's Temple, and he was the number 2 in charge. And he was probably the most dangerous to Jim Jones.
That's right.
So when he defected, that was a big to-do. He would stay on the go traveling for the cult business or People's Temple business, whatever you want to call it. And he decided, I'm done. I got to get out of here. And he teamed up with Grace so they could get John back. In retaliation, though, and this is the most ridiculous retaliation, Jim Jones orders gay porn in his name, and then he released an affidavit that Tim had made fun of the Guyanese prime minister. And sick burn, sir. Sick burn.
What a roast.
Like, who's checking his mail? Just himself. What? Does he even have an address? God.
Got him.
Got him. So Jim would have people write essays on how they would kill Tim Stone and had them read them aloud during meetings. He also made him the focus of a few rants. Tim would join the Concerned Relatives group, and this was a vital addition due to his knowledge of the temple operations, the letter-writing campaigns to the Secretary of State in Guyanese government, and his travels to Washington, D.C. to lobby for a federal investigation. Stone became the Concerned Relatives' primary legal representative. As people started leaving and the custody case for John got more tense and closer to the Guyana courts, his paranoia and need for control deepened. Do you know what happens now? Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, anyways. Tim and Grace had been filing writs requiring Jones' appearance in the court stateside, but it really escalated once they were able to have the courts request cause for why Jim should not be compelled to return John, which was the final step before real action that would swiftly follow. An arrest warrant for Jim, and he could not abide. How do you handle a custody case? No better way than an attempted assassination.
Of course.
In September of 1977, he has staged another one of his attempted assassinations, only this time it wasn't about a miracle. It was about inducing fear. Remember before he got shot and he was like, I'm healed.
Yeah.
Father Divine had told Jones personally, find an enemy and to make sure that your people know who that enemy is. That way they all unify the group together and make him stronger and more subservient to him. He staged his son Stephen in the forest, and his job was to shoot at Jim, and that would initiate a siege. And to keep it authentic, Jim's bodyguard wasn't even informed that this would happen. So when Stephen shot at him, and of course he missed on purpose. Better man than me.
Yeah, I wouldn't have missed.
Whoops! I sneezed. He started returning fire in Stephen's direction. He started screaming, and he was like, got on his the radio. He's like, the Guyanese and mercenaries are outside the walls of Jonestown. They're ready to kill everyone and come get John because of Tim and Greystone. And so they marched everybody in military formation and gathered them in the pavilion. And they were also armed with whatever they could find and make a weapon, basically. So while the guards had guns, you had all these elderly ass people, children, and other people like, here's a garden fork, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Not to mention that
I got a piece of paper. Do you know how painful a paper cut is?
They're all malnourished too. Best army ever.
Malnourished and tired and fucking
children and elderly that are malnourished. I couldn't think of a better army to protect me.
They sat in fear and silence for 2 days without sleep. 2 days. The whole ordeal,
awesome. They're sleep deprived now too.
Right? Even more. And this whole ordeal that would happen would last 6 days and be named the 6-Day Siege. So I have a couple recordings for this. The first one is him Jim Jones stewing over Stone's legal action.
Trying to obtain the child from the legal property has the legal rights. Take his airplane trip, and we got another $17,000. Get the attorney that owns it in Guyana court, and you got another $10,000. Now I'm talking about minimum. $27,500. Get whoever they send out here, maybe try to kidnap the child, we got more money.
So at one point, Guyanese Deputy Prime Minister Ptolemy Reed was pallying up with Jim Jones. But in the way a realtor does it, we're friends, let's find you a house. And then they drop you like a hot potato afterwards. Kind of like that. And that's the way Ptolemy Reed looked at him. Like, okay, we got your money, you're here, fuck it, whatever. So he tried to reach out to him because of all this happening to see if he could stop it. And he had just avoided him. He found out, though, that Ptolemy was in the States, and he assumed that it was definitely about the People's Temple because there's no way whatsoever he would go anywhere without it having to concern the People's Temple. It's like that dramatic friend, they're just so obsessed with me.
Yeah.
Nobody's obsessed with you.
No,
Stop it.
Nobody cares.
He told his people, we're going to go to Cuba. And they marched a good bit of them in a panic rush through the jungle at night to Port Kaituma to catch a boat that was supposedly there. And then this is a clip of him talking about dying for Guyana. I feel like a radio DJ.
Uganda, Idi Amin will take us. I'm asking if Libya will take us. But they've got to come here, and we've got to all go out together because I wouldn't trust them taking us 15 people at a time. They would do some of us in. We've got to all go out of here together, or we don't go. Made an appeal. I'm doing everything short of dying. I've made an appeal if they'll take us to Libya. That's stood up to America. I'm sending an appeal now. If they'll take us to Libya or to Uganda or someplace and give us freedom, then we will go. But we have to all go together. Right. They won't come in parts. They've got to have a ship down there and put us all on that ship. And they've got to have a ship out in the ocean. And all of us have got to be on that ship because I don't trust these people anymore. To die for Guyana, we would have given our blood. No one would have crossed the borders because we considered this to be a socialist country. And somehow it seems that many are more interested in the approval of the special interests of the ruling class in the United States than they are standing up for socialism. So if that's the case, then we will die for what at least we have built here in this country.
Improv is a lot of yes-anding. You have to have that other party kind of going with you. it felt like this situation was a yes and situation, but they didn't know they were participating with this with him because he marched their asses all the way out there for no fucking boat. And then was like, well, I don't have any more lies to come up with. I guess we're just going to have to fucking go back. I literally wrote in the next bullet, I love when I leave little notes for myself, fuck you, shoot me now.
Yeah, exactly.
You are not marching me another fucking 7 miles. I mean, it was so bad. It was very crowded when they got up on the port that like people fell in the water and got injured. It was muddy. This lady broke her fucking hip. Like everybody's falling apart. It's the worst thing. And I'm not saying worse like the most tragic, but worse as in like everybody's having a bad time.
Yeah.
With that knowledge of the case coming closer and closer to home, they threatened to take action to die in revolutionary suicide. And they contacted Marceline, who was still stateside, running the temple. She didn't come over to Jonestown till much later. She was all in charge of all that stuff stateside. They were going back and forth, talking to him and Marceline were talking about the threats. And here's a part of that.
Promise that this would not happen, that no one would be taken, that we would have complete sanctuary here. We were also given the promise of Dr. Reed. I cannot imagine them that they have gone back on their word. But I also don't understand why they did not call you. Do you copy? You understand how this country works, or any socialist country works? This would not have happened. The Minister of Justice can stop this from happening. And I can be arrested at any moment. If you don't get control of your emotions, you can destroy the greatest decision in history. We are asking for asylum for all of you people and our people. We want asylum in any country that will give us the right to build in peace. Do you copy? Nothing more, nothing less. That's all. We're just saying that we will not allow any of our people to be taken. And of course, we cannot wait here endlessly, because we have only so much food and so much resources. Do you copy? We're not insane people. We're people who live by pacifism. Obviously, that's the way we chose it when we turned people away from our gates. We could have taken hostages. We could have done any number of things. But we do have the right to die, and everyone made that decision. Anyone that wanted not to was given permission to leave. But we will die unless we are given freedom from harassment and given asylum somewhere. Tanzania, Libya, even Uganda. That chap seems to have enough strength to stand up for what he believes. We want some place where we can live in peace. That's all we've asked. We don't want be a political pressure. We don't want political power. We've been building this community. As I look out over it, is the most fantastic thing, and everyone that visits it say we have made this part of the country. We've enriched it by everything that's growing and all these beautiful buildings and our medical clinic and our lovely homes. But if we cannot have this peace here, we want it somewhere, and we want it very soon. Get Herb Cain. He's at least been more.
So is all this mass suicide leading up because he's going to get arrested?
That's the catalyst, yeah.
Okay.
That they're going to take John the Godchild away.
Okay.
He keeps threatening this, right? And you know this is almost a performance because he's assuming people are listening in to his conversation between the San Francisco Temple and them. So the San Francisco Temple fucking panics, and they track down the deputy prime minister. They're like, okay, he's threatening to kill himself. You got to do something. And he was like, listen, what the... First of all, you dramatic ass bitches. I ain't even over here for you. And the Guyanese Defense Force will not be invading Jonestown today.
No.
And so, unlike some of these smaller countries, they're easily bribed in the court systems. So a court clerk actually refused to sign the arrest warrant for Jones. And there was talk of interference in the legal process by the Guyanese government. So he did protect them to a degree, I believe. But they relayed that back to Jim, that nothing's happening. And he, of course, went outside and told everyone, "We won!
No, Jesus.
The siege is over. We won!" Don't you love how that works?
Mm-hmm.
After the 6-day siege, he's thinking, Guyanese ain't never gonna fuck with us. We got it. We fine. And no, we're untouchable. In Georgetown, the People's Temple, they conducted frequent meetings with the embassies of the Soviet Union, North Korea, China, and Cuba, all in a bid to hopefully find a new Eden, since Guyana's kind of getting a little hot, you know, in the literal and metaphorical sense. And all of them were like, it's a no from me, dog. We're good. But the Soviet embassy, they were like, I'm thinking Mother Russia might want to. I don't know. They had extensive discussions of possible resettlement there with the Soviet embassy. And the temple produced memoranda discussing potential places within the USSR in which they might settle. On October 2nd, 1978, Fyodor Timoveyev, I even did the phonetics, man. Consul for the Soviet Union in Georgetown, visited Jonestown for 2 days and gave a speech. Before the speech, Jones stated, "For many years, we've let our sympathies be quite publicly known, and that the United States government was not our mother, but the Soviet Union was our spiritual motherland." And so here is a recording of Fyodor.
For the first time, hundreds of guests have come through here in the name of socialism. Hundreds of guests, but for the first time, and now I give you without further ado the consular and the chief of the press department of the embassy of the USSR of Guyana, so proudly, Fyodor Timofeyev. Will you come forward? Come forward. He is deserving of your welcome and your praise.
Здравствуйте, добрый вечер, дорогие товарищи. First of all, on behalf of the Embassy of the USSR, I'd like to send to you my deepest and our deepest and the most sincere greeting to the people of the first socialist and communist community of the United States of America, in Guyana and in the world.
So at the beginning, it's, I believe he says, "Good evening, comrades," in Russian. A lot of the people had been studying Russian under Jim Jones' directive, so that became a big thing, and they were trying to learn about, like, how to become Russian and, like, what life was like and what they needed to be wearing and shit like that to fit in. It was not a very long speech. It was just pretty much a courtship. Anytime anyone visited Jonestown, of course, nobody was like unannounced visitors because it's in the fucking middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, they have people in Georgetown. As soon as people visited Georgetown to make it to Port Kaituma, they would know about it. So they would be on their P's and Q's, have everything cleaned up and looking nice, and they would take out the good stuff to eat. We're going to have actual meat tonight. And so everybody would be in a great fucking mood because they're getting actual fucking food and not having to work their asses
feasting
off. Like, this is a vacay day.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share this song that they end up singing at the end of the meeting. And I'm going to ask you what it reminds you of afterwards.
And we're glad we're a communist today, and communists all the way. We're a communist today, and we're glad We're a communist today and we're glad. We're a communist today and we're glad. We're a communist today and a communist all the way. We're a communist today and we're glad. We're a communist today and we're glad.
Oh, sorry, we were getting into it. What does that song remind you of?
It reminds me of something. I can't put my finger on it, but I definitely feel like I'm in church singing some.
Yeah, to me, it's like a mixture of a gospel song.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember the song That Never Ends? This
Oh,
is the song
yeah.
that it's literally the same fucking verses. A communist. Like, it was just so weird. And that's Jim Jones singing.
It was a bit catchy.
Right?
Jimmy's Fun Facts. If you found yourself mindlessly clapping along, there is a lot more where that came from. The album Jim Jones, In Praise of Jim, is a collection of songs recorded in various locations between 1973 and 1978. Compiled using original tape sources from the Jonestown Institute, you will hear such classics as that previously heard We Are Communists Today, Socialism's Real, What Jim Jones Has Done for Me, and What Jim Jones Is to Me, with an A-side and a B-side totaling 23 spirit-lifting gospel tracks. Perhaps you too will listen and be glad. Or don't. Just please don't.
While it did look promising, it never did pan out. And this was his only visit to Jonestown, to Maveyev's. The clock was ticking for a final white night, and that would fast approach after his visit. This is in October. The massacre happened in November.
Mm.
So we're going to talk about the first official white night. It was actually the 6-day siege. So white night wasn't necessarily a specific date, as in it was a code for, like, you remember when the Queen died, they're like, London Bridge has fallen? It's like that. It's a white night. It wasn't the OG name, though, for it. It started out as Omegas and then Black Night. It was deemed too racist. And so they gradually, Jim bullshitted his way, and it was called the White Nights. It would start out with Jim calling alert, alert, alert over the community loudspeaker to call the community together in the central pavilion. And then around the pavilion, it would be protected by, I thought you were raising your hand. I was like, question? Armed guards with guns and crossbows would be surrounding them in protection.
Awesome. Anytime crossbows come out, it's going to be a good day.
It's very Daryl Dixon, you know what I'm saying? There would actually end up being 84 white knights in total. But he would talk about them all the time. He would have them write essays of, what would I do if this was the last white knight? Sometimes he would give the members 4 options. We can attempt to leave for the USSR. We could commit revolutionary suicide. We could stay in Jonestown and fight the attackers, or we could just flee into the jungle to the tigers, if you will.
I will.
But in February 1978, they discussed their decision for revolutionary suicide. And here is a recording of the options.
We got some options before we go. We want to get options to test new people. The options are: the Soviet Union has implied that there could be a war over us. Well, that can give you to believe that the Soviet Union might not be so inclined to pull us out. I mean, worst come to worst, nuclear war is hell. Although they gave us assurances that that was certainly within the realm of possibility they could do it, but they couldn't do it quickly. They would not give up possibilities here. The jungle has opportunities. They gave that as an out, too. There were other opportunities and other things happening, but they were a little skittish about talking. They could arrange for Dr. Jagan, but Dr. Jagan didn't like to be interrupted in the morning, which don't make me feel very good in the wee hours of the morning. And they knew when we talked to him the last time, and he was very friendly, but evidently made some complaint about being talked to at that hour, which me also bothers me. And I don't think no communist should be bothered when there's emergency. What hour they're interrupted, if they are communist. If there's any other communist leader except Jim Jones. Okay. You've got revolutionary suicide and a task force that goes out to get our enemies, take their potion, and we go, all of us go. Or we go into the jungle, or we make some kind of a militant stand here demanding exodus. You say, oh, we've been through that. Yeah, have we? I doubt if some people ever been through it. They just sit here, and maybe after the third and fourth time it comes through their mind. I gave you some options. Which of those options do you vote for, and what is your position about everything? Go ahead, dear.
You're right. He does become more slurred and harder to understand, and thought process is more scattered, I guess would be a word, as time goes on.
I can picture him, and he's just like sitting back in a chair, and the mic keeps going. What do you call it, Jimmy?
Off axis?
Off axis. He goes off axis a whole shit ton. He goes back and forth, and then it's like, I don't even think we were talking about that, but okay.
Yeah.
At least 2 occasions after a revolutionary suicide boat was reached, a simulated mass suicide would be rehearsed. One former member spoke of her experience of this. Everyone, including the children, was told to line up. As we passed through the line, we were given a small glass of red liquid to drink. We were told that the liquid contained poison and that we would die in 45 minutes. We all did as we were told. When the time came, when we should have dropped dead, Reverend Jones explained that the poison was not real and that we had just been through a loyalty test. He warned us that the time was not far off when it would become necessary for us to die by our own hands.
Would you drink the Kool-Aid, or would you pretend? Like, when someone gives you a shot and you don't really want to drink it, so you're like, oh!
Yeah.
And you give it to somebody else or dump it out.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's delicious. And, he's doing this, and if you think about it, if you're doing something repetitively and it's like the boy who cried wolf, eventually you don't care and you know what's going to happen until it does happen. And you don't realize it's happening right in front of you. Dr. Schock began performing testing on poison they might use for suicide in May of 1978. He used it on pigs due to their similar metabolism to humans. They had been getting cyanide shipped in to clean gold under a jeweler's license. That was the pretense, which I thought was like, okay. And they would try different concoctions of the poison using different volumes of, let me see if I can do this right, diphenhydramine, promethazine, chloropromazine, chloroquine, chloral hydrate, diazepam, and the most important component, a cyanide. Did I screw up that? Did I do okay?
You did good.
Oh, thank you. The Red Brigade that he talks about many times was his way to intimidate the residents of Jonestown. You had your regular residents, everyday people, right? The Red Brigade were described as armed guards, and they would carry semi-automatic weapons, and they stood watch in the sugarcane fields around the perimeter of the compound and other various locations. They did not express anything. They were very neutral in their face. And if you did not respect the Red Brigade, or you just even said, like, oh, I don't like this, they would be re-educated or punished. He even reached out to the good old peanut farmer Jimmy Carter himself to help due to the pressures of custody case. No shock, he never answered. Because remember, he was took pictures with his wife, so he thought they were pals. The mounting pressures and drugs abuse were starting to be so evident that they even speak of them at the meetings. He complained of insomnia, strokes, weight loss, that's a lie, temporary blindness, convulsions, and at the end of October and November, he would have grotesque swelling of the extremities. Here is a recording of him talking about how ill he is and some of his back and forth rambles.
All right. Now we will continue with the marathon and almost futile effort to explore our conscience. Are you sicker than me? I doubt it. You don't know what a blood sugar of 45 is. Ask the doctor. It's pretty bad. Makes you feel awfully miserable. The blood sugar should be 90. Mine never gets over 45. Every time they take it, it's 45, 45, 45, 45. Nurses take it, doctors take it, it's always 45. That leaves me in headaches and dizziness, extreme irritation, like I could just knock the block off of people, but I never do. And it's always directed when I do feel like knocking the block. It's a block that deserves to be knocked, if you understand. Out of frustration, you may be around me when I can't get to a block that I want to knock, so you'll feel my voice raise. Or I've had no disturbance. I jumped off a pulpit once and had one little issue of irritation display in this place, and I've been through 2 goddamn wars planning defenses of our people in America and in Georgetown and here. And the last time I jumped off a pulpit, it's been a long time ago. I don't even remember who, and grabbed their throat. But that's what insulin does. It drives you. So I can keep this enormous pace, I suppose. But it's still also awesome because it makes that generator out there sound like, and makes all your whispers sound like cannon.
He's so annoying.
He is.
Ugh, the amount of
ask
eye
a doctor.
rolls.
It's bad.
I can't stand, like, you know, when you meet those people and they're like, tell you a story and they have to like do just like that. My blood sugar was 45. Go ask a doctor how bad that is. And this and this. And it's like, okay, I got it. Like, shut the fuck up. I got it already. Fuck. Why do we have to keep going on for 45 minutes about your one incident that happened in your life?
Oh, right. So here is a testimony of healing and ill health.
Walter Williams. Don't like to be told enough what to do, Walter. Now, you were paralyzed, and if I hadn't told you what to do and healed you when your spinal fluid was coming out of your mouth, you wouldn't have lived. Now, you're going to have to know that we all give and take orders. Remember what I told you last night? I take orders 24 hours a day. The orders of the people. When I was ready, hoping I could drop down in bed after being up all night with that goddamn radio and all day, then came that accident, and I didn't get a chance. So I'm under orders. I'm in a worse restricted sense than you'll ever be. I'm under constant orders. I don't like being here tonight. I want to pee. I need to pee, but I don't want to take away from the people because I'd like for them to get a late movie or a chance to do whatever they're going to do. I'd like to get over with. So I endure the pain of the headache that's always with me for my blood condition, blood sugar. So I'm under orders. I'm in difficulty. This is not what I want to do tonight. Are you going to change that, son? Where do you go? Wood chopper, fine. Wood crew.
Tell me, how does spinal fluid come out of your mouth?
If you have a
I'm
hole,
not a nurse, but I'm pretty sure that that's not how that works, right?
You had a hole in the back of your head and you're dead. That's the only way.
And which, like, how could you even tell it's spinal fluid?
Exactly. But
Like-
see, people that have no medical knowledge, if someone tells you that, you would believe it.
Like-
Because you don't understand how.
It's like when you watch, like, those, like, hospital dramas and they're like, stat!
Yeah. And
Do
they have
people
like,
really do that? No.
when they see the people intubated on there, and I'm like, that's a suction thing they have taped in their mouth. That's not how you intubate someone.
Exactly.
That's why I can't watch those shows. And JJ gets annoyed because I'm like, that's not right, and that's not right. And he's like, okay, can we just watch the show?
You got that for that and true crime. Like, hold on.
Yeah.
I did an episode on this, and I know good and damn well
Yes.
that ain't right.
I like to find new and exciting ways to annoy my husband.
It's just so, it's a service, really.
It is. I am the Jim Jones in his life.
You remember Dr. Carlton Goodlett over in California? He examined Jones in August of 1978, who said of the examination, we went into the doctor's office and examined Jim Jones. He had a spiking temperature, which fluctuated between 96 and 102 degrees. He also had a deep, non-productive cough. Physical findings did not indicate any notable pathology. X-rays were normal, without any objective signs of pneumonia, TB, or cancer. We tried to reassure Jones that he did not suffer from any disease. I did indicate, however, that he might be suffering from a fungus infection of the lung. Even him, he's like, ain't nothing wrong with you. I mean, you might have some weird ass shit happen, like some jungle fungus in your lungs, at most. But you fine.
Yeah, your blood sugar ain't 45.
No. There ain't no spinal fluid.
No.
Anywhere. Except your spine.
where it's supposed to be, in your brain. It also goes to your brain and circulates in there, FYI. Dropping a little knowledge bomb on you there.
Boom. Despite Jim's many complaints, there are plenty of photos and footage of him interacting, looking enthusiastic, along with the countless audio recordings. So his symptoms were being managed until the end, apparently. And Goodlett was sure that had the massacre not have happened, he probably would have died of natural causes within a month.
Jim Jones?
Mm-hmm. Just because he was just so drugs, like so much drugs, and he was like...
Oh, he definitely had some heart failure. There's no doubt about that. Drugs are not good for your heart, kids.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Not
or
good.
Your soul. Only
or
chicken
your soul.
soup is.
Oh.
Mom joke.
They're not good for your mind either. And if you don't believe me, listen to these tapes again.
It's so good. So as these defections and the insomnia of Jim Jones worsened, things were on a razor's edge. And the thing that would tip them on the wrong side of that edge would be a congressman. And that's where we're going to pick up next time. We're going to talk about the escalation of the White Knights, Congressman Leo Ryan, and the end of the People's Temple. For real. You guys, we thought this was going to be a 4-episode thing. And then when I got to writing this, I was like, oh no, this is definitely going to be 2 episodes, 5 in total. And then even then, this episode is already super long. So I apologize in advance. You're
it's okay.
welcome.
Thanks for all the knowledge you're dropping on us.
Some of it is like pertains to the whole situation, and some of it is just like, what?
Some of it's just like interesting to hear because you're like
him over there, like, I don't even have time to pee, so I just deal with the pain. What? Are you a mother?
Yeah.
Like
we
I
got people
to you, and now I tinkle a little bit when I sneeze, but you're welcome.
We got people tending to the fields for 6 hours, and then 6 hours of Russian class, and then they get a scoop of beans and rice, and you're talking about how bad you got it because you can't pee. Motherfucker, come at me again.
So we're going to go through our cult safety one more time. There are resources available, and some of them are called the Freedom of Mind Resource Center, the Cult Education Institute, Encourage Survivors of Cults and Abuse, Hope Valley Counseling for our UK listeners, International Cultic Studies Association, and its partner, Spiritual Abuse Resources. We judge not. So
we judge not.
But if
you're
you are eating rice and beans,
join mine and Jennifer's cult.
Yeah, I mean,
we only require all your money and homes. It's not that much.
I mean, we'll throw a cheeseburger your way at least.
Cheesecake, faux show. I will not deprive you of cheesecake.
No, not at all. We're a pro cheesecake cult. Okay.
Yes. Gluten-free crust.
Can you help us make this a full-time job? Let me tell you the ways. Subscribe and rate us on all the platforms you might listen to, or just all of them if you're like super rad.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be cool.
You're bored at work.
Right. Follow us on the socials. DM us if you have your own Too Close to Home stories. And check out our merch if you just want to look cute. You know what I'm saying?
If you want to look adorable.
And until next time,
stay safe.
Keep your head on a swivel.
Don't bring it so close to home that you can't pee.
Tiger, take me away.
Please, Tiger, take me away.
Take me away.
I don't want to live this life
I'm just
anymore.
if it's a zombie apocalypse, zombies. If it's a cult in Guyana, right into a tiger.
For real.
Bye. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode of Too Close to Home, don't forget to rate and subscribe to us on most platforms. Follow us on our social media at Too Close Home Pod on Facebook, at Too Close Podcast on Instagram, or if you have your own Too Close to Home experience, shoot us your story at tooclosetohome@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening.